Hey guys, Nova Bullshit here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're here to talk about my thoughts, your thoughts on the Charge Blade. Let's get into this. But before we get into this, I gotta say, you Charge Blade users, what is this? When I looked at the post, I saw 29 comments. I couldn't believe it. But you know, before I clicked into it, I was like, maybe a lot of these are just replies to other comments, you know, just spreading the glory of the Charge Blade. But no, I clicked into it and it's literally like 24, 25 straight comments talking about the Charge Blade. It's not even the small comments, they're actually big paragraphs. And now I'm like, holy crap, what is this? A Charge Blade uses the Jehovah's Witness of Monster Hunter? Is that what we're about now? I'm just being preached to right now. I feel like everyone's just telling me the glory of the Charge Blade, how great it is. And I'm just like, damn, you know, I already believe. I'm already a believer, all right? But, oh man, it's just, I don't know. Is this what you guys are like in the club, you know? Like that meme. No, everyone's just trying to have fun. You're just talking to some girl like, yo, have you ever heard about the Charge Blade? Have you ever heard about the SAED and the SAED and turn around to focus mode? We got Savage Axe now. We got Savage Axe. Let's go. I mean, I don't know. That's what it feels like. Oh, God. Oh, God. But no, enough of that. Let's get into my history with the Charge Blade. All right, so the Charge Blade. I've only really used it in the 5th gen. And only in Rise, actually. I've only used it in Rise and Sunbreak. I didn't touch it in World. So a lot of the people who came from World, they have a different experience when it comes to Charge Blade than me. Towards the end of Rise, I was trying to test out with other weapons that I haven't played before. And the Charge Blade appealed to me. I thought it was really cool. And it was good. I actually really liked it. I liked using, as you guys would call, the Savage Axe. But I think in the game it was Condensed and Spinning Axe mode. You know, it was a bit different. Back in World or Iceborne specifically, you could actually have both of them for your weapon, but in Rise, it was mixed. So you had to either have the axe or the amped up sword. You couldn't have both at the same time. I'm not sure if that was a big complaint from Charge Blade users. One of my friends, real-life friend Shibs, he always talks about that. He's a 5th genner. All of his experiences World and Rise when it comes to Charge Blade. So, I mean, I don't know. You guys have to let me know down below if it was much better in World than it was in Rise. I do know there's a lot of issues that people had when it came to Rise Charge Blade, but who knows? But that's my experience. So I'm excited to actually play it in Wild. But enough of that, let's get into the poll. All right, and here we are. And the question of today is Charge Blade users. What did you think of the weapon in the Wild's beta? With 164 votes. So not too many, which is actually surprising because you guys chat like so much. But not many of you voted. But it's okay. Let's get into the voting. We got 40% here saying I love it. 46% saying I like it. 13% saying I don't like it, and 1% saying I hate it. So hate was really low, one of the lowest when it comes to all the weapons, but I'm surprised that like is the highest voted for the Charge Blade. But to be honest, reading through the comments, I actually can kind of see why. There was a lot of people who didn't like some of the changes that happened to the shield, around the Savage Axe as well. So it wasn't like they extremely didn't like the weapon changes, they just didn't like some aspects of the changes. Yeah, why don't we just go into it and read what people have to say. But this time we're going to do it a bit differently, similar to how we did with Insect Glaive, where we'll group up certain comments and talk about certain topics that people mentioned together, because a lot of the points that people don't like are quite similar and a lot of the points that people do like are very similar. So yeah, let's do this. Now, first of all, let's talk about Garden. A lot of people talked about how they like the new Garden in this game when it came to Charge Blade. For example, Versatility says, the new shield boost is very effective when you get the red files. Then you just store them and immediately turn into a charged shield in one chain of movement. So yeah, it seems like it's quite fluid just to be able to use the files and actually help boost your shielding. Shielding is a very important part of the Charge Blade. When you think of a weapon like Sword Shield, the shield isn't as important in the combat. Mostly you're dodging or moving out of the way, but the Charge Blade is a whole different kind of fish, right? Your shield is bigger, your weapon is bigger, you're more grounded on the ground, and monsters come to you. Use your guard points correctly, you can do SADs and so on back into the monster's face. Yeah, just keep up the chain of events. Now going on Honeycomb here, C says, Garden, guard points, and clashes all flow into accessing your Savage Axe and SAEDs. And she also says how guard points are as satisfying as ever. Now, I'm not the greatest when it comes to Charge Blade, so I didn't really pull off too many SAEDs, but I'm getting used to it, and it was quite nice. I did like guard points, I did like Garden. It did feel quite effective. I wonder how much more powerful Guarding will be when we have skills such as Guard on our weapon. And when we're fighting harder monsters, I suppose we're going to need that to really keep them at bay. That's always been one of the most important things when it comes to the weapon. I feel like guard points is a staple in the Charge Blade. Being able to guard at the correct moment and then dish back your attacks onto opponent is very rewarding and very satisfying with the weapon. But to be honest, it wasn't all smiles. Some people had some bad things to say about the guard point, saying it felt redundant. Now here we got Kalikov Light, and he says in this point here, I'm still pretty unsure how I feel about the perfect guard eating up all of my guard points lunch. Now I'm not really sure what he means by this. I didn't know guard point was such a bully. in this game. But if you guys can let me know down below, is there an issue where you're doing a perfect guard and the guard points isn't working correctly? Like maybe it's a bug or something. Like I don't know, maybe you guys can fill me in on that certain piece of information, because I'm not sure. Spark also says a similar thing, saying here, from what I've seen, my only complaint is that the guard points are worse than the perfect guards. This can be fixed by just letting guard points get the perfect guard bonus on top of the existing bonuses. Next we got Hito the Living Drawing. Been a while since I've seen you, my guy. And he says the weapon getting a guard counter really invalidates guard points, which was this weapon's whole thing. And I actually did see a lot of people talk about this when it came to Sunbreak and Rise, and how they felt that a lot of the guard points and the perfect parries in that game kind of felt a bit worthless because of the Y-bug moves that just pretty much invalidated all other types of guarding, because it was stronger, it didn't have any hit back, and then you can go into SAED just straight from it. It just felt so powerful in that game that people didn't feel that they needed to actually play the usual way they use the Charles Blade with. So if Hito is feeling this type of way around the weapon, I can imagine why people would have a bit of an issue with the new way of guarding with the Charge Blade. Like I was saying before, it seems like a lot of the passion for this weapon comes into that the ebb and flow of the combat, with the monster coming to you, you taking the impact. It's like you're taking the kinetic energy inside of you with your files, and then you're dishing it back out with your SAEDs and SADs. That's what it kind of feels like to me with the Charge Blade. If that type of flow of guard points and taking in that kinetic energy and then dishing back out that kinetic energy isn't there, then there's a problem. But then again, even though that's the case, Versatility 1 comes back saying that the counter SAED is as strong as ever, since you can even do it after getting big knockbacks when guarding. I wonder what that really means for the weapon when you don't have much guard. I suppose with more guard you can get back into it more quicker. The knockback doesn't mean that much, you can get back in the counter attack faster. It's a bit more safe, and obviously you're going to take less trip damage. But even if you don't have guard, you can still counter with an SAED and dish back the kinetic energy like we were talking about earlier. So the situation around the shield, for some people are hits, for some people are miss, but maybe just certain points of it. So if they can really improve it so your guard points matter more than they are right now, that would be great. Because it seems like a lot of people are liking that new shield boost. So, you know, it's a mix. It's honestly a mix when it comes to the shield, but it's looking good overall. It's honestly looking good overall. But next, let's talk about the versatility of the weapon, because versatility of the Charge Blade is an important thing, such as it is in Switch Axe as well, as it's a weapon that can change between two different modes, the axe and the sword, and also the Savage Axe. So having that versatile way of playing is important for this weapon. And Night Train here talks about it, saying, I love how Savage Axe mode works now. Much better than World, and an improvement from Rise's version. Now, like I said, I didn't have much experience. Actually, I had no experience with World's version, but I did have a lot of experience with Rise's version. Rise's version was really cool. It had nice reach. And once you were in the mode, you were in the mode. It was just you and the weapon. You didn't even have an option of playing a different style. It was either or. And I've seen a lot of people talk about how they didn't like that, which we'll get to eventually. It is nice that we have some more dedication to it. It's still in a kit, but through different ways in this game now. So it's not either or. And then back to Versatility 1, he says, it's like they take the best of both SAED style and Savage Axe style and turn them into one fluid offensive style, which is good. It's nice to have a way to flow around your combat. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing quite a lot in Wilds, is they're taking different aspects of weapons and hitting and pushing them to 11. They're trying to not leave certain aspects alone and just feel useless. They want every single particular way you can use a move to impact your gameplay overall, which is good. I think that's good game design. You don't want certain aspects or certain moves in your weapon to feel useless and just feel redundant and just be left alone, because at that point, what's the point of them being a part of the kit? That would show, to me at least, and maybe to you guys too, that they have failed in the game design overall for a certain aspect of a weapon, just putting an ability just for the sake of it, which isn't what we want in the end. And it seems like now with the Charge Blade, they're getting to that point where pretty much everything feels quite tight, quite fluid. Now, of course, apart from guard points, some people talked about that, but some people really like that. So, you know, maybe we need to test it more. Maybe we need to get more used to it. Safi also adds into this, saying it has become the actual axe weapon in Monster Hunter more than Switch Axe. I'm not sure if he meant this as a negative or a good thing, but since he said actually, maybe in a positive way. But that's not all. J-Dog Poke Pixels actually has some negative things to say about this. Quite an interesting name, by the way. And he says, it felt like there was a more emphasis on Savage Axe this time around. I think Rise and World both had more fun Charge Blades. That's interesting. Maybe particular for you, you didn't like Savage Axe as much. But Riker also says a similar thing, so let's see what he has to say. The way the weapon has been going is making sword mode more and more useless, and spending 90% of the hunt in axe mode. It's a change I don't love. Damn. So maybe this is what J-Dog was talking about, moving away from the traditional sword mode and axe mode and now moving more into the savage mode. Quite possible. But J-Dog, if you do watch this video, drop a comment down below and let me know specifically what you don't like about the Savage Axe being a vital part of the kit. The more emphasis on the Savage Axe, the more emphasis on Axe mode and SAEDs and so on, is moving away from sword being a prevalent part of the weapon in his opinion, and I'm wondering if J-Dog also feels similar in this aspect. This reminds me of the issues of the Switch Axe, where balancing between the two modes was always a problem with Monster Hunter, the Monster Hunter team. For pretty much all of its history, sword mode was the preferred. Axe mode was basically useless. It was just a thing that you used when you didn't have enough gauge to keep on using your sword. But in Rise, they actually buffed that quite a lot, and in Wilds, they do retain some of that aspects to the weapon. But it seems like it's going the other way with Charge Blade, where they're adding so much into Savage Axe, into the Axe mode. The sword mode isn't seen as prevalent. Now, sword mode is definitely the best way to get your files up, but maybe apart from that, you don't really use sword much, right? It's more like the way to boost you up to get into your stronger moves. It's not really something that you use throughout the combat in the fights. So maybe that's a problem. You guys down below need to let me know how you feel about that. Is Savage Axe becoming too prevalent? Is it becoming too much of a staple of the weapon? Because like I said before, versatility means that many different ways of the weapon are useful, and I always think about Charge Blade as like a Switch Army knife, right? And Switch Army knives are supposed to be versatile. They give you so many different options to tackle a certain problem, or just gives you so many different tools to tackle many different problems, which is what Charge Blade and Switch Axe should do. Sorry for me talking too much about Switch Axe, but I feel like Switch Axe and Charge Blade are quite similar in comparison with their philosophy in Monster Hunter. But down below, you guys have to let me know what you feel. Maybe it's just a dumber thing, or maybe it's just how the weapon just feels overall. You guys have to let me know, because yeah, it's important definitely for this weapon. I think versatility is a very important thing for it to have. And one thing that's interesting when doing these type of videos is seeing one person having one point of view and another person having a different one. For example, Anonymous here says, the only problem is when playing multiplayer, basically when you want to get the Savage Axe buff, you're going to fight with other players to hit the wounds first, so Savage Axe can happen. The only other way to get to Savage Axe is from mount. Yes, I was actually wondering if there's any other way. I couldn't figure out myself. It seemed like it was either from the focus strike, or was it from mountain? There's no other way. So even though we talk about more versatility, even though we talk about how Savage Axe is back, maybe this is harping back to what some of the other people had to say when they had issues with Savage Axe, and it was more fun in Rising World. Is even though it is back now in your kit, it's still tied to certain action, right? It's tied to actions outside of your natural control in general. You know, you don't decide when runes appear. Obviously, when runes do appear, you then use the move whenever you want. But it's not something you can just use whenever you want. It's tied to the wounds itself. It's tied to mechanics, the wounds, the mountain. So in a general playing session, you can't really take into consideration that it's going to be something that you're going to use a lot, which might be a problem. I don't know. You guys have to let me know what you think down below. It is kind of interesting how certain actions that were available in most situations, or new ones in general, are now tied specifically to focus mode and focus strikes. I guess it keeps them fresh because you don't see them as often as the other moves, but at the same time, maybe there's a certain situation where you want to use that type of move and you can't unless there's a focus strike. So yeah, there is some limitations there. I do understand what Nominus is saying here. Possibly it's just something we have to get used to, and maybe in the future, in the DLC, in the expansion, we'll see more options on how we can actually use Savage Axe in the weapon kit. In fact, I just want to read Mr. 101 AAA Man's comment here because I think it's going to add nicely into this conversation. I mained this in World, but barely played it in the Wild's beta because I know I will need a lot of time to fully understand the weapon. Generally, it's still good, but with some new changes. I'll finally have to start using guard points properly so I can get into Savage Axe. But I felt like the windows for guarding and guard points were bigger this time round. So this comment kind of makes it seem like to me that you can get into Savage Axe from your guard points. I didn't know this. If anyone down below can tell me if this is true or not, that would be great. And this just adds into what you're saying about spending a lot of time with the weapon to understand all its abilities, right? I myself didn't spend that much time in the demo on Charge Blade because it's not my main, and there were so many other weapons I needed to try and cover, mainly Lance, Gun Lance and Sword Shield, but I never pulled this off. I never knew it was a thing, so it's good to see that there's more ways to get to Savage Axe rather than just focus strikes and mountain. So thanks for this, Mr. 101, and guys down below, if you could let me know if you've seen this, if this is a thing, because if it is, that sounds pretty damn cool. Cammy Blades here says, I didn't know that the Savage Axe was a thing in Wilds. I thought it was a file upgrade. I like that you don't have to go into Axe mode to SAED and that you can use the regular attacks. I'm not a fan of the feel of Savage Axe in Rise and wish I can just do my normal axe attacks, but I don't know how it feels in World and Wilds. Well, Cammy, reading some of these other comments, I guess you can kind of have a feel of what other people are feeling about the Savage Axe in the game. So I think for now, these are your best, but for now, I think these are your best points of reference. I think this conversation around Savage Axe is actually turning out to be quite controversial. Some people are really loving it, but some aren't. If you have a look at Riker, he says overall the Charles Blade feels good, but some of the changes feel rather strange and a little clunky. He then moves on to say Savage Axe in the beta is very overtuned. The motion values of all of your normal axe attacks are increased, and Savage Axe as well, while AED and AESD damage is toned way down, which is strange because it is no longer accessible from neutral. Yes, I did realize you can't do SAED from neutral anymore, like I could in Rise, which using it from neutral wasn't the thing I really did, unless I felt like there was an opportunity. Now, obviously, like we've said before, many of our videos for these weapon thoughts, this could just be beta specific things, and as the game comes out, the balancing of the weapon will be more in tuned overall for what the weapon should be. Because for my knowledge of Charles Blade, AED and SAED are two massive parts of the weapon itself, and I know Savage Axe was a nice iteration added in Iceborne, but still it being too strong in comparison to everything else kind of leads the conversation towards that, right? Rather than just fighting normally as you would in some other games. He then goes on to say, the new axe attacks like the fade attacks are welcome. As in Iceborne, Charles Blade axe was very boring, just spamming up and down swings. I would like to see a more for you playstyle of using AED more and swapping between sword and axe mode return. Yes, like I was talking about before, switching between the two modes makes a lot of sense as the weapon that has two modes built into it. So the focus of the weapon should be using both modes to its best capabilities and not just sticking into one mode because I suppose you preference that mode, or just sticking to one mode because it's the strongest mode in general. It's balanced better for that mode than the other. They kind of need to get to a point where both are useful. And I didn't play it in 4U, but I do remember a lot watching videos, and yes, AED getting some quick burst out and then, you know, getting your files up was a big part of the weapon in that game. So yeah, I'm very much on top of this. I think this is a good idea, and yeah, thanks for that one. But they're not the only ones just to say this. You got J_162 who says, I don't like how activating power axe mode, Savage Axe, works particularly in multiplayer. Also, the playstyle focused on SAEDs seems much weaker than Savage Axe. He also moves on to say, speedrunners don't even use sword mode for more than charging the shield and perfect blocking the first roar to activate Savage Axe. Damn, that is pretty rough. If they're not using a particular aspect of the weapon apart from just to charge your shield, it's what many people have said so far. They need to fix that, but yeah, we've already been through that point, so we're not going to harp on that point anymore. But here, he definitely seems to say, yes, perfect blocking, hitting your guard points allows you to get into Savage Axe mode very quick. So, Anonymous, me and you both learned a new thing today. Thank you for that, J_. I appreciate that one. And Felipe says, Charles Blade peaked in base world. Savage Axe is born in my honest opinion. Damn. Well, hopefully you can adapt to this new way of playing. And I guess that's the thing when you don't have things such as stretch skills. There are some people who want everything in the weapon all together, but there's some people like Felipe who apparently don't want Savage Axe and he prefer to not have it. But I mean, I could say just don't play without it, but there's no real practical way to do that really. The weapon is balanced around you using Savage Axe and making use of wounds and guard points and so on. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to say to you. Maybe you'll come around and you'll enjoy it, but it does seem like some people are really not liking Savage Axe. And the fact that it's right now a big staple for the weapon and one of its most powerful tools is going to be unfortunate for the users who don't like to use it. Now, one big thing when it comes to Charles Blade that actually keeps people at bay from playing it is its complexity. So I want to highlight these two comments here, and these two paragraphs in particular, and talk about them. Now, from Mr. Nogante, he says in the second paragraph here, on the other hand, I feel like the new added complexities are modeling what I enjoy about it. Attacks only partially using files, overcharged files, locking Savage Axe behind specific move only available in specific scenarios. All this on top of what Charles Blade already has. These are interesting new additions, but at the end of the day, I just want to SAED in a monster's face. It seems that so many new things being added into weapon kind of, as he says here, models the situation of how you use the weapon. When you have too many options, sometimes people don't really understand, okay, what's the option I should be picking? In what scenario should I be picking as options? And that may just be something that we learn the more we play the weapons and we understand the gameplay and the situations we should be using things in. But it can also be a bit overwhelming. It makes the package of the weapon feel maybe a bit too wide for some people. And just on a side note, for newer players, it's going to make it very difficult. But that's on Capcom to finally do some good tutorials to actually teach people how to play weapons and not just send them to the hunting notes, which has always been an issue for me. But he's not the only one who says this. If you go to Mecha Animations, love the name by the way, I had a little check on your YouTube account and it was cool to see some of your your mecha videos. Anyway, and then he talks about how the new file system was confusing to understand. He managed to figure it out in the end like a champ. So yeah, that just adds on to the fact that, you know, more mechanics can change the focus of how people play your weapon. Some people are going to like that, some people aren't going to like that. And in some of these cases, it seems like most people are happy, but there are some in particulars that people are a bit iffy about. But the more we play it, like I said before, I think the more people will come to enjoy it. So that's a good thing at least. Shout out to Jiggy Niggas.
What?
Who says, hey, new subscriber here. Yeah, nice to meet you, man. Invested 1,000+ hours into both World and Rise on both Switch and PS5 as a Child's Blade main. I'd say Wild's version is okayish. It seems to have lost some of its versatility. Now, you really rely on the Savage Act and the wound system. AED and SAED make sense, but they don't benefit from overcharged files. Could be a bug, but I digress. I will always be for players' freedom of expression. I hope Capcom makes all playstyles viable. If the people want SAED spam, let them. If the bug boys want to fly, let them. We play the games to have fun. Thanks for this comment. Now, this is a really good comment. You know, it's good to see that you've been investing a lot of time into World and Rise. It's always good to see new people coming into Monster Hunter. You echo a lot of the thoughts that people have said so far, definitely about the Savage Axe and somewhat about versatility. I'm very much for play freedom as well. I do agree with a lot of that. But I will say I'm a bit different in the fact that I also very much respect game balance and game design. Now, the SAED spam, I don't have too much against. I think it makes sense. I mean, if people want to do that, yeah. As long as it's balanced correctly for the damage that it does in comparison to the other things that the weapon can do, sure. But specifically when you talk about the flying stuff, I mean, you can look at my insect glade video, which I did, but I'll just briefly explain to you my position on the situation. I think flying makes the game a bit easy. It makes it hard for monsters to track and actually attack certain players. Definitely when they're in the air and they're moving about, it makes it hard for them to do that. In Rise and Sunbreak, Capcom did a lot better and the monsters were more precise where they were hitting, but it still wasn't perfect. And maybe they could put more effort into this game to get to work better for the future, but it seems like they wanted to go back to how the weapon kind of worked in for you with a new addition still. That's all I'll say about it for now. You know, if you want to hear more of what I had to say, you know, check out the Insect Glade video that we did. That was quite interesting one, probably one of the more interesting ones overall. But yeah, no, thanks for the comment. It's good to see a new subscriber. And it's good to see all the new subscribers who come through and, you know, written comments and replied. You know, I'm trying to take bits and pieces from all of your comments and talk about all of them. I can't really go through all of them, thanks to people like Honey Konav and Anonymous, who literally write, like they're writing a whole thesis on Monster Hunter, like they're at university or some shit. Like, bro, like if I was your professors, by default, you guys are getting Fs, alright? Like, I don't care what you read. You read too much. You read too much. But anyway, thanks, Jiggy. Appreciate it. So going through a lot of these comments, it seems like some people really like the shield, some people don't. Some people really like Savage Axe, some people don't. It seems like Charge Blade, just bits and pieces where people are falling on either side. But overall, people are still liking it. So this shows to me that there's just particular things when it comes to balance that people are hoping Capcom fix when the full game comes out. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think a lot of the things we saw today were quite insightful. And if Capcom do address them, when it comes to your shield points and so on, if they do just these mechanics and make them more impactful in the gameplay of the Charge Blade, I think people really enjoy the changes for the weapon. So how about we just finish with some nice quotes of people who are really excited for the weapon. Like Night Train here, who says, I think it's the best that has ever been and flows really well. Being able to more easily snipe heads with AED, and the new follow-up is incredibly satisfying, and Charge Blade got one of the best focus strike animations. Or Kevo, who simply says, I love how you saw the monster's wounds with the axe. Nicely put, Kevo. Nicely put. We got JJ here, says definitely one of the best feeling weapons in the beta. It gives power to an entire moveset again and buffs both the length of the buffed sword and the buffed axe. It truly feels like the return of the king. A great comment and a great movie to boot. Sunny JRC says, I adore the new Charge Blade kit. There are steps that could be taken to polish it further, but I guess we'll have to wait for the expansion for that. Well, not necessarily. Remember, this is just a beta. It's possible that they will change things for the full game, and even after that, they do sometimes do updates to change certain mechanics for the weapons, such as in Rise. They did do a lot of balancing to different weapons when it came to how much Y bugs it used, durations, and so on. So it's very possible that they will polish up the parts that you feel aren't there with the Charge Blade currently. So let's wait and see. I think that's the best way we can kind of do this. Wasabi says, I generally like how the weapon has changed. Both playstyle, Savage Axe and SAED spams are still viable, but it is a little bit harder to access. So there are many variables between doing these great moves, so we can't just spam them. This could be seen as a good thing. You know, you have to build up to use your more powerful moves. Just maybe that's what Charge Blade should be, and I think that is more in line of what Charge Blade was back in the 4th gen. Maybe that's why a lot of people who start in World have a bit of issue when it comes to the Charged Blade, from my knowledge at least, and I need fellow old heads to help me out here. I think in the old gen, it's more of a build up. You need to build up to get to your bigger moves. You can't just do them outright. While in at least Rise, I know you can literally just throw out your SAEDs. Like, there's no tomorrow. Like, it doesn't really matter. And I'm not sure if it's the same in World. But in the old gen, I know that it was more of a build-up. And it seems like in Wild, it's similar to that build-up. So, yeah, I can understand why some people may not like that. But, you know, sometimes you got to work up to your strongest things. And if that change is quite difficult for some people, I understand. Maybe we'll adjust. Maybe you won't, I guess. But, yeah, maybe you'll adjust. Maybe you'll adjust. I mean, just here, we can see Honey Konav, the traitor. And she says, yes, you need to build up SAED, but it's only an extra step, and you're rewarded for the overcharge mechanic, which adds an extra punch to your file damage and extra shield charge time. It stacks with Savage Axe too, which makes your AEDs cost only half a file. I love the Charger Blade. Yeah, this is a good one to actually finish on. So yeah, regardless of all of that, I think this also adds into what I was just saying about you having to build up there. And Honey Kona feels it's a rewarding mechanic. By playing well and playing efficiently, you can get to that stronger threshold. You can get your bigger damages out by making the right decisions and playing effectively. And I'm all for that. Hopefully, the more we play, the more we get used to it. But only time will tell. So Honey Konav, I know even though you sent like 20 paragraphs here, I mean, yeah, thanks for doing that, I guess. It was very informative, honestly. Can't lie about that. But I think we've done quite enough. I don't even know how long this video is, probably like 40 minutes or something like that. So how about we just finish off with my thoughts on the weapon. Now, I used the weapon a decent amount. I think it was probably my 5th most used weapon in the demo, in the beta. And I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Now, I'm coming not from a Charged Blade main, so all the particulars and all the specific things that you guys can understand and spot out from the get-go is not something that I can really feel or understand as much. But what I can say is the sword mode felt good to me. The strikes felt cool. And yes, it definitely felt like Savage Axe did a lot of damage, and when the wounds happened and it was time for it, I went ham. But it felt good. I thought it was pretty cool. I like the look of it. I guess the only problem when it comes to this stuff, focus mode is more like an auto press this button to do an action. It's like that typical thing you see in a Sony game, that Sony story games, where it's like press this button for this action. You're not actually really doing it yourself, right? So since it's that kind of move, I guess it doesn't really feel as cool when it's just a button that you press and it automatically kind of, you know, does it on the spot. If you get what I mean, it's not something that you actively decide, okay, I'm doing this in this position specifically. I know that's a kind of weird concept to understand because you do technically choose to use the focus points, but I'm not sure if I'm making sense here. You know, you have to guys, if you guys understand what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying. But overall, I did like the Savage Axe. I thought it was pretty cool. Now, guard points, I'm not very good with the guard points when it comes to switching your weapon. I think that's what a lot of you guys were saying, where you have guards while switching between or doing certain moves with your axe or your sword. And after that, you can do AEDs and so on. I'm not very good at that. Normally, I'm just doing my normal perfect parry. And then I can just get straight into my SADs or so on. That's normally how I do it. I need to get better when it comes to my flow of Charged Blade or fighting and changing mid-combat to actually lead into the next. But I think it was really good. I really did like that aspect of the weapon. Now, similar to mecha animations, the file system was kind of confusing to me as well. The new charge up file, I didn't really understand how you did that. I think you had to charge your sword and shield and then charge your axe or whatever, and then somehow you get your charged files. I didn't really understand the applications of it. That's something I'm going to have to play with more to kind of fully grasp what it's about. But overall, I am quite optimistic for the weapon, and I think the more I try it, the more I play with it, the better I'll get. It's not going to be one of my mains in the game because, well, there's too many weapons I want to main, but it's definitely going to be a weapon that I'm going to play more often and more regularly because I feel like there's a lot to do here. There's a lot to learn and there's a lot to kind of understand when it comes to this weapon, and I like technical weapons, so it's going to be quite exciting to use Charged Blade a lot in this game. I'm actually really excited. But that's it for me, guys. Let me know what you think down below. Next one we got is Switch Axe. Switch Axe is a weapon I use a bit more than Charged Blade. I'll be able to add in a bit more context into what I'm talking about. After that we got Lance, which is the end of the series. I know some people ask for bow guns and stuff, but I know nothing about bow guns, so I can't add any context apart from pew pew. You can shoot from range. That's pretty much it. All right. that's pretty much it. Yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. See ya. Yo, Honey Kona, you really love Charged Blade. I fucking love WoW's Charged Blade. And this is coming from a player who made overall jack of all forms builds for Charged Blade in World. She really loves it. She loves going savage with her axe and charging with her sword. I mean, all power to you. All power to you, girl. You know, you do you. You do you. I'll see you in Wilds. I'll see you in Wilds.